Your offer got accepted. Now what? This is the part where people start to feel unsure again because now you're under contract. There are deadlines, things to do, and a lot happening behind the scene. Let's walk through exactly what happens from here all the way to getting your keys. The problem is, most people think that once their offer gets accepted, they can relax. But this is where the process shifts. Now, there are timelines, responsibilities, and things that need to happen in order. And if you don't know what's coming, this can start to feel a little overwhelming again. So let's break this down simply, starting with what happens right after you go under contract. After you go under contract, the first step is going to be some immediate deadlines. Your earnest money is going to be due. Your option money will also be due to the title company. And there's this phrase called time is of the essence. And essentially what that means is that deadlines actually matter. And there can be consequences if you don't meet those deadlines. The next step right after your immediate deadlines is an option period. And this is going to be the best time where you as the buyer have the most leverage to do your due diligence. And what I mean by due diligence is you're probably going to have your inspection during this time, having it pretty early, and be able to negotiate repairs during your option period. You're also going to research and make sure that all the things you're expecting for this area and the property are as you're expecting them to be. And so you might do research on schools, you might do research on crime statistics, and you just want to make sure that this is the place that you really want to be. During this time, you have the unrestricted right to terminate in Texas. And so what that means is for just the amount of money you paid in option, you can walk away from the transaction if you find out something that's a deal breaker. Also, during the option period, there's going to be a lot going on behind the scenes with the title company and with your loan officer if you're getting a loan. Now, the next step is where a lot of people may start to feel confused because that is you might find yourself waiting. And you're really busy in the beginning, and that's why it can feels confusing, and then you're kind of doing nothing. And so if all of a sudden you're waiting and that feels a little odd, that might be normal. And if you're unsure, just check with your agent. The reality is a lot is still happening, but it's going on behind the scenes. Let us know in the comments if you've ever had a time in life where you're really busy and then waiting, and what you did to make sure that you stayed sane throughout that process. And by the way, my name's Jerry. I help people break down the process of buying a home simply so that they can ultimately get to the goal of keys in hand. The next step is getting everything in line that you're going to need before closing. You're going to be looking at your final numbers. You're going to be making sure that you have funds available and ready to bring to closing. You may also do a final walkthrough, and I always recommend that for my clients so that what you saw when you made the offer on the house is very similar or the same as what you're seeing before the closing. Essentially, you're just making sure that everything is in place before you sign. So now let's talk about closing day. It's actually a lot simpler than we build up in our minds. And so in general, just know that you're going to need to make sure that you have a valid ID, that you have sent or bring funds that you need for closing. And 3, you need to be ready to sign a lot of documents, especially if you're getting a loan, because there will be plenty for the buyer to sign. Once you've signed everything at the title company, now you're officially done. However, there's still one really important step. That final step is getting the keys. Now, you might get the keys after you sign or shortly after you sign. However, sometimes it might be later in the day or the next day. And the reason is simple. The title company needs to ensure that they have all the funds in order to close the transaction from lenders and from you as the buyer. Once the title company ensures that the transaction has funded, you'll get the keys. And congratulations, now you're a homeowner. No more renting. No more wondering if you can do it. You have done it. Congratulations. You've made it to the finish line. And if you think back to where you started, not knowing where to begin, now you know the entire process step by step. Prepare, search, contract, and close. If you want to feel even more confident, check out our next series on down payments, how much you actually need, what your options are, and how to plan the right way. Go watch that next because that's one of the biggest questions people have before they even start.